I'm Renee Kemsky. I'm the Nutrition Program Manager for the Health Department of Nutrition Services. And I'd like to introduce Melissa James, and she is our newest dietitian, and she's also the coordinator of the Diabetes Self-Management Education Program. So today, Melissa's going to lead you in a presentation where she's going to talk a little bit about just a reminder about what a healthy diet is, and then talk about some tips and things that you can do to avoid some of the holiday weight gain. While she's doing this, she'll talk to you about some of the things that get you off track during the holiday, because we know it can be very tempting with all of the holiday sweets. And then she has some recipes and strategies, and she'll put it all together. And then we'll talk finally about our services at the department. So I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, and then I'll see you at the end.
Okay, thanks, Renee. So like Renee said, today we'll talk about how to stay on track during the holidays. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to review what a healthy diet should look like all the time throughout the year. I don't know if you've seen this before. Has anyone seen this? This is what the government uses now instead of the food pyramid. It's the Choose My Plate. What it does is it shows you how to make a balanced plate with half the plate being fruits and vegetables and half the plate being protein and grains, with a quarter of the plate each for protein and grains. So that's just a really good way when you're making your plate. You don't have to measure the food or anything, but just to think about the plate being balanced, and that helps you keep the portion of each food in control if you're limiting it to a certain amount of the plate. So keep that in mind as we go through and talk about the holidays, because we'll come back to that concept of a balanced plate. Okay, so what gets you guys off track during the holidays? Baking. Okay. Yeah, that's true. So these are some of the things that I came up with that can get people off track during the holidays. The first one is obvious, the holiday parties. I don't know if you've started having them at work yet or not, but definitely at home too. Also alcohol. How do you think alcohol can get you off track during the holidays? And yeah, well, aside from the calories and the drink, if you drink a lot, you might have had a good plan at the beginning of, what you were going to eat or what you weren't going to eat, but then that goes out the window if you have a little too much to drink. Family traditions. I know when I was little, my grandma would come over and we would bake cookies. Christmas morning, my mom would always make a coffee cake and a sausage casserole. So different traditions can provide less healthy items. Do you guys have any that you can think of that your family always does?
My mother is from, her family is Czechoslovakia, and they have a pastry that is made with butter, cream cheese, and flour, basically a cup of each, and then you fill it with a jelly or something. So, just that alone is going to add to it. So at least I ended up using light cream cheese.
Okay, good. We're going to talk about recipe modifications, so that's good. Yeah, pastries, all sorts of different traditions. And so we'll talk about how to balance enjoying their traditions with, still staying on track and not gaining weight. Another thing is stress. We're all a lot busier during the holidays. I'm glad you guys had time to come, though. So we'll talk about managing stress in relation to eating. And also exercise. Since we're busier and more stressed, sometimes exercise goes out the window, but it's very important for maintaining weight to keep exercising, and we'll talk about why. So before we jump into what to do about all these things, I just want to go over the basics of weight loss, weight gain, and weight maintenance. So I don't know if you know, but 3,500 calories is what equals 1 pound of fat. So for 1 pound, think 4 sticks of butter. That's how much 1 pound is. I have a little model of what 1 pound of fat looks like in your body. If you want to, I'll leave it in the bag. It feels kind of gross. If you want to pass it around, that's 1 pound of fat in the body. So in order to gain or lose 1 pound, you have to have a 3,500 calorie, extra or deficit. So the way that would happen, say you eat 500 calories extra every day, for 1 week, that's 7 days, that would be 3,500 calories, so you'd gain a pound. Or say in 1 week, each day you had 500 calories less than what your body needed, then you would lose a pound. And that deficit of 500 calories could come from exercising more or eating less or both. So an example of what the 500 calories might look like, if you ate 500 calories extra, say, your coworker brings in a coffee cake in the morning and you have a small piece, and then in the afternoons people pass around candy and you eat 2 fun-sized candy bars, and then when you get home maybe your neighbor brings over some cookies and you have a frosted Christmas cookie. There's your 500 extra calories if you didn't make any other adjustments during the day. So I point that out to show how easy it is to get off track and gain weight, but also how easy it is, say if you turned down 2 out of the 3 and then took an extra walk, you'd still be okay. So just keep that in mind. So after that, let's look at the positives. The holidays are a time of celebration, and food is one of the pleasures of the holiday season, so we don't want to make ourselves feel deprived or restricted. We want to enjoy the holidays and the food without going overboard. So I have some tips of how we can do that. The first tip is during the holidays, think weight maintenance, not weight loss. The holidays are not a great time to start a weight loss plan, even if that's what you want to do. But if you can maintain your weight for the holidays, that's a success, and then you can start with weight loss in January if that's something you want. My second tip is to plan ahead. That's key in any kind of behavior change or dietary change. Plan healthy meals ahead of time. We all get home at the end of the day, and what are we going to cook? If we don't have a plan, it's easy to just sort of munch on some leftover junk from a party or something like that. So plan healthy meals ahead of time, and that'll help compensate too for the times when you have a meal that's not as healthy at a party or something. Plan what a healthy dish is that you could take to a party. We gave you some good recipes in the packet, so those are ideas, especially the appetizers are really healthy and tasty. And your coworkers might appreciate it if you're the one that brings a healthy dish, because then they can eat it too. Plan activities to limit your stress, because we all know we'll get stressed out at some point, whether it's from family or extra stuff to do. How do you guys deal with stress? I like to do yoga, but okay. So the idea is obviously finding something that you can do. Maybe walk with a friend or something like that to avoid the emotional eating, which is the last point there. Find someone to take a walk with you. That's a good way to get away from a stressful family situation too. Is, hey, you want to go for a walk? I need some exercise. Leave everybody else behind. Okay, another tip is choose foods with fiber. Do you guys know why fiber is good? What foods have fiber? Whole grains. Fruit, vegetables. I have a handout, if you want to take it at the end, that lists the fiber content of different foods. The benefit of fiber is it takes your food longer to digest, so you stay fuller for longer, so you're not tempted to go back and snack throughout the day. And it also helps you feel full, so you stop eating sooner too. This one here is key. Have the foods you really want, but think about balance. So like I said, I don't want people to feel deprived during the holidays. If there's their favorite treat, they don't need to say, oh, I can't eat that. But just choose a small portion, and then forego some of the other things that are there that maybe you aren't as crazy about. And think about the plate. Do you have all the food groups accounted for? And if you do overindulge, don't give up. The holiday season, all is not lost. You can still do better at the next meal. You can go for an extra walk, things like that. So be positive with yourself. Don't say, oh, I screwed that up. Oh, well. Just be positive. Let's see. On holiday party days, it's important to not save up your calories for the party and skip the other meals. Anyone know why?
You end up overeating.
You show up, you're starving, you eat really fast and eat a ton. So still eat your other meals and snacks, and the other meals and snacks can be light, they can be small. There's an example here on the screen, and notice with these examples each meal or snack has a little bit of protein or healthy fat, and that's what helps you stay satisfied and keep your blood sugar level throughout the day so you're not feeling energized and then sugar crash and stuff like that. So for breakfast, for example, you could have some nuts on some oatmeal, and the nuts will keep you satisfied. Then if you had a cheese stick for snack, that's really light, really small, but the protein and fat in the cheese will keep you satisfied. Then for lunch, say it's holiday party time at work, you have a big meal. But later it's important so that you don't start to crash and get tired to have another small snack if you're feeling hungry, like a Greek yogurt or something with some protein. And then for dinner, you don't have to say, oh, I ate a lot, I need to skip dinner. Just eat a small dinner. I didn't show it earlier on my plate model, but a small piece of chicken is good with some vegetables, and that would be fine, and then you would have stayed on track all day. I can go ahead and pass around the plate. When I was talking about the plate earlier, these are some examples of a balanced plate. This one you can see all the food groups are in their appropriate spot on the plate. And this one shows you how to remember household items to think about how much of the food you should put on your plate. So like the meat we usually compare to a deck of cards, and other things you compare to like your fist or a light bulb or a ball. So I'll pass those around.
And Melissa, I did bring some of the magnets that have the food portions on them, so we can take those.
Oh, cool. Okay. So we have magnets for the end with the food portions. Okay, so hunger. This is a skill that can be challenging, to pay attention to your hunger. It sounds easy, but especially if you're really hungry when you start eating, like if you haven't had your breakfast and you just start eating and eating, it's hard to recognize when you're full. It takes your body about 20 minutes to realize it's full after it's full. So that's why we say, don't show up starving, so then you eat so fast that by the time your body realizes it's full, you've eaten a lot. So pay attention to your hunger. There is a scale you can use in your mind. Am I a little bit hungry? Am I a lot hungry? And so pay attention to that as you eat. A HALT principle is another principle you can use when you're wanting to eat. So think, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I anxious? Am I lonely, or am I tired? Why am I really wanting to eat? And then think about ahead of time, if I do feel those other emotions, what am I going to do besides eat? Okay, another tip, enjoy the conversation at the parties. If you're talking, you're less likely to be putting food in your mouth, and that'll help you slow down so you can realize when you're full. I brought up alcohol before. That's not at every party, but if it is there, a good rule of thumb is to limit to 1 drink for women and 2 drinks for men. And that's a good amount so that you don't have excessive calories from alcohol, and so that you don't go overboard and sort of lose track of your plan for what you're going to eat to stay healthy. And keep on exercising. That's really important, a good way to maintain, because remember the 500 calories extra per day. If you want to have an extra treat, it's going to add up, and that's fine, but then you can compensate by walking. The average person, if they walk for about 20 minutes, will burn 100 calories. So if you do that every day for, say, 6 weeks, you'll burn more than a pound of fat just from that 20-minute walk. It could even be 2 10-minute walks a day. So that really helps people to stay on track if they're eating a few extra treats during the holidays. So in addition to all those tips, you can also modify your actual recipe. I know Diane mentioned using the low-fat cream cheese. Do you guys have any other recipes that you modified before? Okay, good. Well, we're going to learn how to do it. So in most baking recipes, you can leave out 1/4 of the sugar it calls for, and no one will ever notice. It'll still be sweet. It'll still do right when it bakes. But you'll save everybody a few calories. And I have some magnets I'll pass around that have some substitutions on them as well that you can look at. The only one I tend to disagree with a little bit is it says to substitute margarine for butter. Some margarines have trans fat, which is not healthier than butter. So just look for one that's trans fat free. But you can pass those around. Okay, oops. Another substitution that you can do with the fat is to substitute half or all, but if you want to be on the safe side, just do half of the fat with something. You can use baby food prunes, you can use applesauce, you could use low-fat yogurt. There's a couple different things you could use instead of the fat. I like to use applesauce. Also, if you're having like a baked potato or something, you'll put sour cream on. The low fat does not taste very different. You could even use the fat-free if you like it. Or especially if you mix it in a recipe, no one's going to notice if you use the low fat. Or if instead of buying the creamy vegetable dips, if you use the plain non-fat yogurt and mix in one of the ranch dressing seasoning packets, it's going to be a lot lower calorie. Don't use the vanilla yogurt, just use the plain. Also, if you're making a recipe that calls for ground beef or something like that, you can choose the 93/7 instead of the 80/20, and that'll cut down on some of the grease. Or you can pick the ground turkey breast. Now be careful with the ground turkey. Do you guys know the trick there? Some of the ground turkeys, they grind the skin and stuff in with it, so it can actually be even more calories than the 93/7 ground beef. But if you look for on the package ground turkey breast, that's the key word. That means they just use the meat part, so it's going to be lower in fat. So if it is just plain ground turkey, it should still be labeled like 93/7 or 80/20 or something like that, so you can look at the fat. Yes, question.
I've always had a question about, like with ground beef, you know when it's done because of the color.
Mm-hmm.
But with the turkey, how do you, I mean, do you just have to use the thermometer, or how do you?
You could, although if you've chopped it up, it's going to be, it's going to be hard to get enough on the thermometer to register well. You could try using the thermometer.
But I mean, does it change colors when you cook it?
Yeah, it is a little harder because it doesn't go from bright red to brown. It's kind of already.
It does.
You can tell. Mhm. Yeah, it'll be clear to you.
As you know, like with beef, I mean, with ground beef, you really don't want it to be not done.
Right.
Done the same way with turkey.
I'd say yeah, you want to cook it fully. Mhm. Just because with anything ground, when they do that process, there's so much surface area that the bacteria can get on. But yeah, good question. Still cook it fully. Let's see. In addition, if you're making a recipe that calls for like ricotta cheese or cream soup or any of the hard cheeses like cheddar, mozzarella, stuff like that, you can substitute the low-fat cheese. Fat-free cheese doesn't usually do right, but if you like it, you can use it. But the 2% cheeses are good, like the 2% cheddar or something like that. The fat-free or part skim ricotta, no one's going to notice. Or the light or fat-free cream soups are still going to be good in a recipe. So we're going to put all this together now. This is an example of a holiday meal that we might not always eat like this. Like, I don't know if you guys pick like pate or things like that, but this would be a normal amount of food to eat at a holiday meal. And you can see the calories really add up down here. If you compare that to what most people need in a day, which is usually around 2,000 or less for women, that's a lot. And you can see a lot of them came from alcohol, got 120 from wine, 400 from scotch. A lot came from the turkey with the skin on, 360. A lot from the sausage stuffing, 400. The nuts, 400. So they really had quite a few here. The pie, obviously. Now compared to this meal, you see it's still a lot of food, but way fewer calories. What do you guys notice? What's different? It's a lot to look at, but they took the skin off their meat, so it was a lot fewer. They substituted a custard without the crust for the dessert. They had less alcohol, so it might be easier to see here. This is the plate method that I talked about before. I set it up like this so you can see this is the first meal that had the 3,700 calories. And so I put the things in their perspective part of the plate. You can see they had mostly what kind of foods? What food groups? Carbs, and proteins. Very few of the fruits and vegetables. Whereas this plate, they had more balance. They had some vegetable appetizers. They had a little bit of fruit in their stuffing, and some healthier carbs and proteins. So I'll summarize in a minute, but Renee will talk about the nutrition services we have to offer.
And we also want to talk about the holiday challenge as well, so also to bring that up again. You have a handout in your packet that outlines the 2 services that we offer at the health department. Our first service is our nutrition counseling program, and this is available to all Orange County employees and their immediate family members, and it's covered by their insurance. And this is where the registered dietitian works really closely with the individual to help that person work on a specific medical goal. So say, for example, a person is trying to lose weight, then we would work with that person on how they can do that in a realistic way. So that is one service. And if you have a family member who is not on your plan, we can certainly work that out as well. The second service is the Diabetes Self-Management Education Program, and that one is more of a group education program, and that's 10 hours of education for people with a diagnosis of diabetes, and it's actually for them and their family members to come, where they actually work with us for 2 4-hour group sessions where we go over all the basics of diabetes management. So we talk about an overview about what is diabetes. We talk about how to manage your blood sugar, how to monitor. We have 2 classes on nutrition and food label reading. We have an exercise physiologist who comes in and shows the group how to manage their diabetes with exercise. We have a pharmacist to come in, the nurse to come in. So it's really comprehensive. We have some great prizes that they get. And then we come back about 3 months later, and the group actually shows us some of the changes that they've made after they've been away for a few months. And most of the people who enroll in this program lower their A1C, and that's their blood sugars. So about 82% actually have lowered their blood sugar by going through this 10-hour program. So any questions about the services that we have to offer? And you have all of this information in your packet. So we'll probably market it again closer to National Nutrition Month in March as well. We got a lot of feedback last year about the interest in our services.
The goal is to maintain your weight during the holiday season, but to still enjoy and eat the foods you really want, but find that balance. What am I willing to have versus not have? And think about balancing your plate with lots of fruits and vegetables. Try foods, but don't overindulge. And if you eat a big meal, remember to eat lightly at the next meal. And remember to get your walk in to help you maintain. And just eat slowly and enjoy.